Every morning, millions rise before dawn. They march to cold, fluorescent temples. They kneel in front of mirrors. They confess to apps. And they torture the flesh in search of salvation through muscles. Religiosity is not in retreat. It is just rebranded. I am convinced that rituals are, if not the origin of every religion, at least they are the continuity of it. Let's say the fuel to its fire. No religion can exist without rituals. Ideas on their own will die out and soon be forgotten. What keeps them going and what keeps them in memory is constant repetition. Not random repetition, but purposeful repetition. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something that I find to be very interesting and fun at the same time. I'm going to criticize myself and criticize the entire movement and fitness and longevity obsession, our obsession with the self. And I will do it through the lens of Durkheim, through the lens of Nietzsche, and through the lens of Han. So just in summary, 3 ideas that I will use to prove and to show you how today's gym is the new church. A relation with the divine is in a sense very similar to a muscle. If you don't train it, it will atrophy. If you don't train it often, it will shrink. Let me double click on this very interesting idea and show you what I meant with making the comparison between the gym and the church. Let's take example the religious believers in general. So religious believers are the way they are, not just because they accept a certain dogma, no question. They are the way they are because most importantly, their lives revolve around a certain set of ideas, just dogmas. So they have certain dates that remind them of their belief. Let's say Christmas, Easter, etc. They constantly repeat certain things, and this is what reinforces the sense of belonging and community and increases their faith. So their life revolves around this dogma or these ideas. Now let's jump and make the link, the fun link, but beyond the fun of it, it's true. I believe it to be true. So gym goers and athletes are not the way they are. So athletes are not athletes just because they think that sports and fitness are in themselves virtuous. They are athletes because of the lifestyle they choose every day. Their lives revolve around certain rituals and exercises. See the link here? And the higher the repetition, the better the athlete. The more you pray, for the religious believer, the more a religious believer pray, the stronger the connection and the stronger the faith. The connection here between the gym goer and the religious believer is unambiguous. Now moving to the first lens that I want to apply on the subject, which is Durkheim's lens. And it's just a very simple one. I'll start with declaring that we are obsessed with ourselves, and in some way we have always been obsessed with ourselves. The difference is that now the sacred, what we idolize, moved from the sky into our bodies. In Durkheim's words, the idea of the divine is the idea of society transfigured and symbolized. I will explain that in very simple terms. When people worship gods, they're really worshiping their collective values. And we can all agree that if our most dominant collective values are individualistic, then what follows is us worshiping ourselves in one way or the other. I'm going to show you a table on the screen so you can see my idea of comparing Durkheim's sacred with the modern day church. So church building, gym floor, CrossFit box, yoga studio. Ritual purity, clean eating, fasting, detox. Priesthood, personal trainers, biohackers, influencers. Ritual calendar, this is very obvious here, training cycles, cutting, bulking, etc. Sacred symbols, now we have dumbbells, kettlebells, supplements, etc. the scale. Heresy, so what we would be called heretics before, now you'll be called heretic if you skip a workout, if you eat sugars, if you are lazy. That's very true. So salvation, now the salvation has moved from saving the soul in a way, to transformation and before and after resurrection. It's a pretty fun comparison and pretty clear in one way or the other. God is dead and we have killed him. This was Nietzsche's idea in the 19th century, that we have killed God through science and rationality and the progress that happened in that century. This was in the 19th century where science and rationality were elevated to the status of the divine. Now, if we move to the century that followed, the 20th century, people still were looking for the divine. They still wanted to seek salvation. And in a sense, they tried to find salvation through ideologies such as fascism or communism, and most importantly, the nation. The nation and the high status of the nation was born. In the 21st century, the replacement of the divine is clearly the self. And this is my point that I'm taking from Nietzsche over here. In the 21st century, the meaning is now centered around extending life and optimizing it. We are trying to escape death in a way and push old age, and we don't want to grow older in a sense. So we endure hardship such as lifting weights, running marathons, going into ice bath, doing a lot of sauna. So these things, we do them to optimize our health and to extend and push, at least, not to extend, but to push the shadow of death as far away as possible. So we don't fast for religious purposes anymore, at least most of us don't, some still do. We fast to clean the body, to cleanse the digestive system. So we fast, but for different purposes now. And this is the idea, Nietzsche's idea, that the body as the last temple. And I think this is a very solid point, if I can say so myself. Even advice now, when we advise someone that is facing an existential problem, a dreadful situation, this advice appears to be coming at us in a Nike outfit. Instead of a prayer and going to church, for example, this is what someone would be asked to do in the old days by the priest or by some kind of a monk. You should be reflecting, you should be finding meaning through prayer and internal reflection. We tell them now that you will find meaning if you hit the gym and be consistent, fast, do some sauna and cold plunges. In a way, the body is the new temple. The third thinker that I'm going to borrow his ideas is Byung-Chul Han from the Achievement Society and the Burnout Society. I've talked about his ideas in depth in the previous video, but for this video I will talk about a passage that is relevant to our discussion today. So Byung-Chul Han argues that modern man no longer obeys a god. Modern man competes with himself. We have replaced external authority in a way by the internal pressure. There's no more priests to judge us. We have become our own inquisitors. What used to be called sin, and this is very interesting and is very real, is now called underperformance or laziness. So the gym is not only a place where we go to train, it's a place where we go to atone for our sins. When we eat like pigs, and we feel that the next day we need to go sweat it out. We need to go torture our flesh in order to be given at least this moral rest by the fact that we have atoned for our sins. And instead of God is watching now, the self is watching. We have internalized it. And this takes us back to Nietzsche's argument. And don't get me wrong here, by talking about the gym, it's not something very specific only to gym goers. The gym is a microcosm of the broader performance culture. For example, the trader doesn't rest. Also, it's the same thing for an athlete. An athlete doesn't rest. A content creator doesn't rest. So they all wake up each morning to the same invisible sermon. Thou shalt not be enough. Finally, the two main points that I want you to take from this video is number one, the self-critique of the religion of longevity, and how the self has become the center of obsession of our 21st century. So we are obsessed with ourselves now, optimizing, extending our lives, escaping old age, staying young, etc. And this was just a fun connection that I made between the gym and the gym goer and the religious believer. But most importantly, and I come to number 2, which is the thing that I really want to emphasize, is that repetition is what builds in habits. Repetition is what creates meaning in a sense. So, for example, a religious believer builds a strong connection with the divine by praying more, praying harder, and the athlete becomes a better athlete by training more and training harder. So everything you repeat, everything you build your life around becomes part of your obsession. But a big question to leave you with is that, is it right to be obsessed with ourselves, or we should be obsessed with something transcendent, with something that is beyond ourselves? I can throw in this question at the end from a purely materialistic way. So should we have some sort of an idea that is beyond us, that we obsess ourselves with to have a more stronger meaning in life? Or is it enough to be obsessed with ourselves and extending our lives? I hope you liked the video. See you next time.